It was another normal morning at school. The sun had just started shining through the windows, making patterns on the floor, and the classroom was slowly filling with students talking quietly, laughing in small groups, and getting settled for the day. Among them sat one boy who usually went unnoticed. He wasn't loud or outgoing, and he never tried to stand out. Most of the time, he kept his head down, focused on his own work, or quietly watching the world around him. The other students hardly noticed him, and that suited him just fine. The teacher that day had a playful reputation. She liked joking around with the students and often tried to make everyone laugh. She had a bright smile that could light up the room and a voice that carried easily, even to the back row. Sometimes her jokes were funny, and sometimes they caught students off guard, leaving them a little embarrassed. Today, she seemed particularly mischievous, her eyes sparkling as she scanned the room. The boy was sitting near the middle of the classroom, quietly arranging his notebook and pencil. He could feel the energy of the room shifting as the teacher clapped her hands together and called everyone to attention. Students quieted down, some with smiles still lingering, others rolling their eyes, expecting another one of the teacher's jokes. Then, she turned to him. "You," she said, pointing directly at him with a playful grin. "Come up here and show us what you've got." The boy froze. All eyes in the room suddenly seemed to be on him. A few students snickered quietly, sensing that something funny was about to happen. He shook his head subtly, hoping she was just teasing and wouldn't actually make him go up. But the teacher's smile didn't fade. Instead, she leaned a little closer and said, "Don't be shy. It'll be fun." Fun. That word made him feel a little sick. He wasn't sure what she meant by fun, and the last thing he wanted was to be in the spotlight. His stomach tightened, and he could feel the nervousness spreading through him like electricity. He wasn't a performer. He didn't seek attention. But now it seemed like he had no choice. The other students were whispering to each other, some making guesses about what might happen. "I bet he can't do anything," one boy whispered. "This is going to be hilarious," another said, trying not to laugh out loud. The whispers and giggles only made the boy feel more exposed, like everyone was watching him, waiting for him to fail. His palms were sweaty, and he could hear his heart beating loudly in his chest. He slowly got up from his seat, trying to look calm even though he felt anything but calm. Every step toward the front of the classroom felt heavier than the last. The teacher's eyes followed him with an expression that was somewhere between amusement and curiosity. The boy could hear a few students whispering, and he could almost feel the invisible weight of their expectations, or maybe their laughter, pressing down on him. When he reached the front, he looked around the room. The students were all staring, some with curiosity, some with doubt, and some with excitement. He tried to think of a way to back out, to say he wasn't ready, but the teacher shook her head slightly and encouraged him to begin. "Just show us what you can do," she said. Her voice was kind but carried a challenge. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment to calm himself. He had never performed in front of so many people, not even at family gatherings or small parties. This was different. This was a classroom full of students who didn't know what he could do, and the teacher had set it up almost like it was a joke. The thought made him want to run, to hide behind a desk, to disappear entirely. But then, something inside him shifted. He realized that he had a skill, something he had practiced quietly for years, something he had never shown to anyone outside of his room. It wasn't about proving himself to the teacher or the class, but it was about finally sharing something he loved. He opened his eyes, looking at the expectant faces, and decided he would try no matter what. The first moments were shaky. His hands trembled slightly, and his voice wasn't as steady as he wanted it to be. A few students snickered quietly, thinking they had already seen the awkward beginning of a funny moment. But as he continued, his confidence started to grow. He focused on the skill he knew so well, blocking out the nervous whispers and laughter. The teacher watched with growing surprise. She had expected a small, funny performance, maybe something clumsy that would make the class laugh. But instead, she saw concentration, precision, and talent. The boy's movements were careful, his focus intense, and there was a rhythm to what he was doing that the classroom hadn't anticipated. Slowly, The laughter and whispers faded, replaced by quiet attention. The students were starting to notice something. The boy wasn't just performing. He was excelling. Each move, each action, each note, if it was music or trick, if it was magic or stroke, if it was drawing, carried skill and care. Some students leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, realizing that this wasn't a joke at all. The boy was talented, and they hadn't expected it. Even the teacher, who had orchestrated the moment with humor in mind, felt a sense of awe. She had underestimated the boy, and she hadn't expected to be genuinely impressed. A smile spread across her face, this time one of genuine admiration, as she watched the quiet student reveal something remarkable. The boy, sensing the shift in attention, started to feel a spark of excitement. The fear that had gripped him at the beginning began to fade. He could feel the skill he had practiced for so long coming alive, and with it, a sense of pride he had never felt before. The nervousness didn't disappear entirely, but it transformed into energy, giving him the courage to continue. By the time he finished the first part of what he was doing, the room had gone completely silent. Every student's eyes were fixed on him, some with disbelief, some with admiration, and some with the sudden realization that they had misjudged him. The teacher clapped her hands softly, almost in awe, signaling the end of that segment. The boy took a small bow, feeling a mix of relief and exhilaration. He had survived the initial embarrassment, and more importantly, he had shown a part of himself that no one had seen before. The class was buzzing quietly, whispers of surprise replacing the earlier giggles and laughter. The teacher gave him an approving nod, and for the first time that day he felt recognized. It was just the beginning, but something had changed. The boy had faced a challenge he hadn't wanted and had come out on the other side, not only unscathed but stronger. The classroom, once a place of potential embarrassment, had become a stage where his hidden talent could shine, and the reactions around him were proof that sometimes, being pushed unexpectedly can reveal something extraordinary. As the students settled back into their seats, the boy returned to his desk, trying to calm his racing heart. He could still feel the eyes on him, some full of admiration, some filled with new curiosity. He didn't know it yet, but this moment would be remembered, not as a joke, but as the first step in a story about talent, courage, and unexpected recognition. And deep down, he knew that this was the start of something that could change how everyone in that classroom saw him forever. After his first small bow, the boy returned to his desk, trying to steady his breathing. He could feel his palms were still sweaty, and his heart was still racing from the unexpected attention. His classmates were whispering among themselves, and he could hear bits of astonishment and surprise. Some were saying, almost under their breath, "I didn't know he could do that," and others were shaking their heads in disbelief. The boy tried to focus on his notebook, pretending to write, but he could feel the eyes of the class still on him, and it made it hard to think about anything else. The teacher, sensing the growing curiosity in the room, leaned casually against her desk and said, "Well, that was impressive, but why stop there? Let's see a little more." Her tone was playful, but the boy could sense that she was genuinely interested. She wasn't just joking anymore. She wanted to see what he was truly capable of. He swallowed hard, feeling the familiar mix of nervousness and excitement building up again. He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should really go back up. The whispers in the classroom weren't mean-spirited now. They were full of curiosity, but it didn't make it any less intimidating. He could feel the weight of all those expectations pressing on him. Yet, there was also a small voice inside him, telling him that he could do this, that maybe this was the moment he had been waiting for to show his talent. Slowly, he got up again. Each step toward the front of the room felt heavy, but he tried to keep his head up and focus on the skill that he had spent years perfecting in private. He felt the eyes of his classmates following him, and even though he felt nervous, he also felt a small surge of determination. This wasn't just about being pushed into a joke anymore. This was his chance to show what he had worked on quietly all those years. As he stood at the front, the teacher smiled encouragingly. She knew now that she had underestimated him, and her smile had shifted from playful teasing to genuine admiration. The boy took a deep breath and began to focus, blocking out the murmurs and whispers, the smirks, and the curious eyes. He concentrated on what he loved to do, letting his skill take over. At first, there was a little shakiness in his movements. The nervousness hadn't completely gone away, but he forced himself to push past it. Slowly, he started to get into rhythm, feeling the flow of his talent guiding him. The classroom, which had moments ago been filled with chatter and small laughter, now seemed to quiet down. Students stopped whispering and leaned forward, eyes wide, trying to understand what they were witnessing. The performance that had begun as a joke was now turning into something captivating. The boy's confidence began to grow with each movement. He could feel the familiar satisfaction of doing something he loved, and for the first time it was being shared with others who were paying attention. The nervousness was replaced by focus, and he started to move with purpose and precision. Every action was deliberate, every note or gesture controlled, and slowly, the classroom started to recognize the talent that had been hidden so quietly for so long. Some students' expressions changed from doubt to surprise. A few of them exchanged looks, as if silently agreeing that they had never expected this. The boy was no longer the quiet, unassuming student in the back. He had become the center of attention for a reason that had nothing to do with jokes or embarrassment. His skill was shining through, demanding respect and recognition. The teacher, who had orchestrated the moment with humor in mind, now watched with genuine admiration. She realized that what she had thought would be a light-hearted joke had turned into something meaningful. Her eyes followed every movement, every note, every gesture, and she felt a sense of pride for having given him the chance to step forward, even if it had started as a playful dare. As the performance continued, the boy started to feel a sense of flow. He was no longer thinking about the class, the whispers, or even the initial embarrassment. He was immersed in the moment, in the skill he had practiced for so long. Time seemed to slow down, and he could feel the energy in the room shifting. Students were captivated, leaning forward, eyes wide, and silent, experiencing something unexpected and remarkable. A few of the students, who had been teasing him earlier in the day, began to whisper words of encouragement to each other. "Wow, he's really good," one said quietly. "I had no idea," another admitted. Even those who had doubted him were now silent, watching with a mix of awe and newfound respect. The atmosphere in the room had completely transformed from laughter to admiration. The boy could sense this change, and it gave him even more confidence. He realized that his talent wasn't something to hide, that it had value, and that sharing it with others could be rewarding. The nervousness that had weighed him down before was now replaced with a quiet pride. He could feel the joy of performing, not for jokes or approval, but simply because he loved what he was doing and had the courage to show it. As he reached the final part of his performance, the classroom was completely silent. Every student's attention was fixed on him, and the teacher watched with an expression of pure admiration. The boy finished his routine with precision and care, taking a deep breath as he stepped back, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. The class remained silent for a moment, stunned by what they had just seen. Then, slowly, the applause began. One by one, students started clapping, some cheering quietly, others smiling in genuine amazement. The boy felt a warmth spread through him as he realized that the embarrassment he had feared so much had turned into recognition. The whispers had changed from doubt and laughter to praise and admiration. He had faced a challenge that he didn't want and had come out stronger, surprising not only his classmates but himself. The teacher clapped loudly, encouraging the class to join in. She gave him an approving nod and said, "That was incredible. I think we all learned something today." Her voice was filled with pride, not just for the performance, but for the courage he had shown in stepping forward when he could have backed away. The boy felt a sense of accomplishment that he had never felt before, a validation of his talent and his bravery. As the class settled back into their seats, the boy returned to his desk, feeling both exhausted and energized. He could still hear students whispering to each other, but now it was in admiration, not ridicule. Some students looked at him with newfound respect, others with curiosity, wondering what other hidden talents he might have. The teacher continued the lesson, but the boy's mind was buzzing with the realization that this moment had changed something inside him. For the rest of the day, he felt a quiet confidence growing. He realized that sometimes being pushed out of his comfort zone, even in a way that felt embarrassing at first, could lead to opportunities he had never imagined. He had discovered that his talent, once hidden, could captivate others, and that recognition wasn't something to fear but something to embrace. The experience had taught him that courage and persistence could turn an uncomfortable situation into a moment of pride and inspiration. By the end of the day, the boy knew that things in the classroom would never be quite the same. His classmates had seen a side of him they had never noticed, and he had seen a side of himself he had kept hidden for too long. The nervous, quiet student had stepped into the spotlight and, despite the fear and embarrassment, had emerged as someone to be admired. And though he didn't know what the future held, he understood that this was just the beginning of a journey that could change how he saw himself and how others saw him. The next day, the classroom buzzed with quiet excitement. News of the boy's unexpected talent had spread among the students, and everyone seemed eager to see him again. Some students whispered as he entered the room, a mixture of curiosity and admiration in their voices. The boy felt a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness. He wasn't sure if he wanted the attention, but he couldn't deny that the previous day had felt exhilarating. There was something thrilling about finally showing a side of himself that he had always kept hidden. The teacher, aware of the classroom's growing interest, decided to build on the moment. She didn't want to embarrass him again, but she also wanted to give him the chance to continue sharing his talent. As the students settled into their seats, she said, "We all know that yesterday was impressive, but today I want to give everyone a chance to see a little more. Are you ready?" Her eyes fell on the boy, and she smiled gently, a mixture of encouragement and respect. The boy felt a rush of pressure, but this time it was different. It wasn't the teasing pressure of the first day. It was the anticipation of expectation. His classmates no longer doubted him. They wanted to see what he could do. For a moment, he thought about refusing, about staying in his seat and pretending nothing had happened. But deep down, he knew he couldn't. His skill was a part of who he was, and maybe it was time to let it be seen more fully. Slowly, he rose from his desk. His steps were steadier than the day before, though his heart still beat quickly. The teacher gave him an encouraging nod, and he felt a small sense of reassurance. This time, it wasn't a joke. This time, it was a moment to show what he was truly capable of. As he reached the front of the classroom, he took a deep breath and let his focus center on his skill. It was something he had practiced countless hours, something he had mastered quietly, away from anyone's view. Today, he would share it openly. His hands moved with precision, his movements confident, and the skill flowed naturally. The classroom, once filled with whispers and uncertainty, fell silent in awe. The students watched closely, their initial surprise turning into admiration. They could see the control, the dedication, and the talent that the boy had developed in private. The teacher's eyes widened slightly, and she leaned forward, unable to hide her astonishment. She realized that this was more than just a simple performance. It was the unveiling of someone's hard work and dedication. As the boy continued, his confidence grew. The nervousness that had plagued him before was replaced by a calm focus, a quiet pride in his ability. He could feel the energy in the room shifting, and he sensed that his classmates were beginning to see him in a new light. The laughter and teasing from the past day had completely vanished, replaced by genuine interest and admiration. A few students whispered to each other, quietly sharing their amazement. "I had no idea he was this talented," one said. Another nodded, saying, "He's amazing. How did we never notice this before?" The boy could hear the admiration, even if he didn't look directly at them. It filled him with a sense of validation, a recognition that what he loved to do had value beyond his own private satisfaction. The teacher decided to let him continue without interruption. She wanted the moment to be entirely his, a chance for him to shine without any distractions. The boy felt a sense of freedom. He could focus completely on his skill, on the rhythm and flow he had practiced for so long. With each movement, he felt more alive, more confident, and more in control. The classroom was completely captivated. Students who had been skeptical before were now leaning forward, eyes wide, taking in every detail. The boy's skill was not just surprising, it was inspiring. It wasn't just the technical precision, but the passion and dedication behind it that made it remarkable. The teacher, too, was moved. She had expected a small display, maybe a bit of entertainment, but what she saw was genuine talent and effort that demanded respect. As the performance went on, the boy began to experiment slightly, adding subtle variations and improvisations that he had never dared to try in front of others. Each edition was met with quiet awe from the students. They could see the creativity, the thought, and the individuality in his skill. The boy felt a thrill, knowing that he was not only performing but also expressing himself in a way that was entirely his own. A few students began to murmur excitedly to each other, pointing out specific moves or notes, discussing how skilled he was. The whispers were not mocking but full of genuine admiration. "Did you see that?" one asked. "He made that look so easy," said another. Even those who had doubted him the day before were now impressed, some with a little embarrassment that they hadn't believed in him sooner. The boy, sensing the positive energy, grew more confident. He could feel the connection with his audience, the shared experience that made the performance more than just a demonstration of skill. It was a moment of mutual understanding, a recognition of effort and talent. He realized that he had not only captured their attention but had also earned their respect. The teacher clapped softly at intervals, encouraging the students to remain attentive. She could see the boy's growth in real time, watching as he transformed from a nervous student into someone commanding the room with quiet confidence. She felt proud of him, not just for the skill he was showing, but for the courage he had found to share it openly. As the performance reached its climax, the classroom was filled with a sense of anticipation. Every movement, every gesture, every note seemed to hold more weight, more meaning. The students were completely absorbed, their eyes fixed on the boy, and even those who had been joking earlier were now captivated. The room was alive with silent energy, a shared recognition of something extraordinary unfolding before them. When the boy finally finished, there was a brief moment of silence, as if the class collectively held its breath, unsure how to respond. Then, slowly, the applause began. At first tentative, then growing louder, it filled the room with warmth and excitement. Students were smiling, some cheering quietly, and others clapping with genuine admiration. The teacher clapped enthusiastically, her eyes shining with pride and amazement. The boy felt a wave of relief and exhilaration. The fear and nervousness of the past days had melted away, replaced by a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced his fears, shared his talent, and been recognized for it. The experience was transformative, giving him confidence and a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. As he returned to his seat, the students continued to talk quietly among themselves, sharing their astonishment and appreciation. Some were inspired, others curious, and many simply impressed. The teacher smiled, knowing that this moment had not only revealed the boy's hidden talent, but had also changed the dynamic of the classroom. The boy was no longer invisible. He had stepped into the light, and everyone could see the remarkable person he was. The boy sat down, feeling a quiet pride that he had never experienced before. He realized that the fear he had felt was natural, but pushing through it had allowed him to grow. He understood that talent, when shared, could inspire others and bring joy in ways he had never imagined. This was more than a performance. It was a turning point, a moment that would shape his confidence and self-belief in the days and years to come. By the end of the day, he knew that this was just the beginning. The applause, the admiration, and the newfound respect from his classmates were not the ultimate reward. The real reward was the understanding of his own potential. He had discovered that being brave, even in uncomfortable situations, could reveal not only talent but also strength of character. And with that realization, he felt ready to face whatever challenges came next, confident that his abilities and courage could carry him forward. The boy returned to class the next morning with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Yesterday's performance had changed something inside him. For the first time, he felt seen, not just as a quiet, invisible student, but as someone who had a skill and the courage to show it. He could feel the eyes of his classmates on him as he walked in. Some smiled, some whispered quietly, and a few looked genuinely impressed. The energy in the classroom was different now. People were no longer joking or teasing. They were curious, eager to see what he might do next. The teacher noticed the shift immediately. She had expected that yesterday's display might be a small, fleeting moment, but it had clearly left an impression. She clapped her hands lightly to get everyone's attention and said, "Today, I think it's time to give our talented friend another chance to share what he can do. Are you ready?" The boy felt his stomach tighten. He had grown more confident, yes, but the spotlight was still intense. He didn't want to let anyone down, and he didn't want the performance to feel forced. But he also felt a sense of determination. He had learned that he could rise to the challenge, and this was another opportunity to do so. As he walked to the front of the classroom, he could hear the quiet murmurs of his classmates. "I wonder what he'll do this time," one whispered. "I bet it's going to be even better," said another. The boy kept his head high, focusing on the skill he knew so well. The whispers didn't frighten him anymore. They energized him. They were proof that people were paying attention and wanted to see his talent. He took a deep breath and began. From the very first moment, the difference was clear. He moved with confidence, each action precise and deliberate. The skill that had been practiced quietly for years was now flowing naturally, effortlessly. The classroom, which had been filled with chatter moments before, fell silent in awe. Students leaned forward in their seats, captivated by what they were witnessing. Even the teacher was surprised. She had expected talent, yes, but not the kind of command and creativity he displayed. The boy wasn't just performing. He was expressing himself. There was a rhythm, a flow, a sense of artistry in his actions that was impossible to ignore. Each movement, each note, each gesture drew the class in further, leaving them completely absorbed. As the performance continued, the boy's confidence grew. The nervousness that had shadowed him in the past was now gone. He was in control, fully aware of the skill he possessed and the impression it was making. The classroom seemed to hold its collective breath, every eye following him, every mind quietly recognizing the dedication and effort behind what they were seeing. Some students started to whisper in admiration. "I can't believe how good he is," one said. "He's amazing," said another. These weren't quiet whispers of disbelief this time, but genuine acknowledgement of his talent. Even those who had teased him before were now watching silently, a mixture of surprise and respect on their faces. The teacher encouraged him with small nods and smiles, but mostly she let him continue uninterrupted. She understood that this moment was his, a chance for him to shine fully. The boy, feeling the teacher's support and the students' attention, began to experiment a little, adding nuances and subtle variations he had never tried in front of anyone. The improvisations were met with quiet awe. His classmates could see not only skill but also creativity and individuality. The performance was not just impressive technically. It was emotionally engaging. Students could sense the boy's passion and dedication. The way he moved, the way he expressed himself through his skill, communicated something that words could not. The room was filled with a silent admiration, an unspoken recognition that something remarkable was unfolding. As he reached the final part of his routine, the boy could feel the energy of the room shifting even more. He was aware of the impact he was having. Eyes were wide, mouths slightly open, some students leaning forward, trying to capture every detail. The applause that had greeted him before this time was not needed yet. The class was completely absorbed, holding on to the moment, letting it sink in. When he finally finished, there was a pause. The silence was almost overwhelming, filled with astonishment. Then, gradually, the applause began, soft at first, then growing louder, filling the room with warmth and excitement. Some students cheered quietly, others clapped enthusiastically, and the teacher's applause was strong and proud. The boy felt a mix of relief, pride, and exhilaration. He had faced the challenge again and had emerged even stronger than before. He returned to his seat, his heart still racing but with a deep sense of satisfaction. The students whispered among themselves, sharing their admiration and discussing what they had just seen. Some were inspired, some curious, and others impressed beyond words. The teacher smiled, knowing that this moment had not only revealed the boy's skill, but had also changed the way the class perceived him. He was no longer just a quiet student. He was someone capable of extraordinary things. The impact of his performance lingered throughout the day. Students who had ignored him or underestimated him before were now looking at him with respect. Teachers in other classrooms were asking about what had happened, intrigued by the stories of his talent. The boy felt a new sense of belonging, a feeling that his abilities were recognized and valued. It was a powerful moment of transformation, not just for him, but for everyone in the room who had witnessed it. By the end of the day, he understood that this experience had changed him. He had discovered the power of stepping outside his comfort zone, of showing his abilities even when it was uncomfortable. He had learned that talent, dedication, and courage could inspire others and earn respect. And perhaps most importantly, he had learned to believe in himself, to trust in his own abilities, and to see his potential in a new light. As he left the classroom that afternoon, he felt a quiet sense of pride. The whispers, the stares, and the admiration would stay with him, but more importantly, the confidence he had gained would remain. He knew that this was not just a fleeting moment of recognition. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a turning point that would influence how he approached challenges and opportunities in the future. The boy had discovered that even in unexpected situations, he could shine, and the impact of that realization was profound and lasting. After the series of performances, the boy returned to class with a new sense of confidence and calm. He no longer felt the intense anxiety that had gripped him at the start. The classroom had changed, too. Students were more respectful, more attentive, and more curious about each other's abilities. The teacher noticed the shift and decided to let the boy have a more relaxed day, though she couldn't hide her pride and admiration. She had seen his talent grow from shy hesitation to confident expression, and it inspired her as much as it did the students. Throughout the day, small interactions reminded the boy of the impact he had made. Some students stopped by his desk to ask questions about his skill, eager to learn or simply show appreciation. Others quietly complimented him, their admiration clear even in simple words. "You're really good at that," one student said. "I didn't know anyone could do it like that," another added. The boy felt warmth in his chest, realizing that these simple words meant a lot. He understood that recognition was not always about big awards or attention, but about the quiet acknowledgement from those around him. During the lunch break, groups of students discussed what they had witnessed. Some were talking about how talented he was, others about how courageous he had been to perform in front of the class despite initial nervousness. The boy sat with a small group, quietly listening, feeling included in a way he hadn't before. He realized that the performances had not only showcased his skill but had also changed the way people saw him, and that change felt good. The teacher also made a point to encourage him privately. She told him that he had inspired the entire class, showing them the value of dedication and practice. She reminded him that talent and hard work often go unseen until someone has the courage to reveal them. The boy listened carefully, absorbing her words, and felt a quiet pride. He understood that his journey wasn't just about performing. It was about discovering his own strength and the positive effect it could have on others. Over the next few weeks, the boy continued to practice his skill, now with more confidence and motivation. He realized that sharing his talent didn't have to be intimidating. It could be rewarding. Occasionally, the teacher would ask him to demonstrate something for the class, and each time he felt a sense of pride and joy. His classmates cheered and encouraged him, creating a supportive environment that made him feel valued. The boy also noticed a change in his own self-perception. He was no longer hesitant to speak up or participate in class. The confidence he gained from performing extended to other areas of his life. He raised his hand more often, joined group activities, and even offered help to other students when they struggled. The courage he had found in sharing his talent had sparked a broader growth in self-assurance and engagement. Parents and other teachers began to notice the transformation as well. They commented on the boy's newfound confidence and participation. It wasn't just the skill he had revealed. It was the sense of pride, focus, and self-belief that now accompanied him. For the first time, he felt comfortable embracing his abilities and allowing others to see the effort and dedication behind them. At school events, the boy's talent began to gain wider recognition. Teachers recommended him for demonstrations, assemblies, and showcases where students could share their skills. Each opportunity was approached with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but he faced them with the confidence he had built. The performances that once seemed frightening became moments of pride and inspiration, not just for him, but for those who watched. The teacher often reflected on the initial moment when she had playfully asked him to perform. What had begun as a joke turned into a pivotal moment in the boy's life. It revealed not just a hidden skill but also a strength of character that he hadn't fully realized. She felt proud to have been part of that journey, to have provided a space where he could grow and be recognized. The boy, too, often thought about that first performance. He remembered the nervousness, the fear of embarrassment, and the pressure of everyone's eyes on him. But he also remembered the sense of thrill, the quiet joy of performing, and the admiration he felt from others afterward. That day had been a turning point, teaching him that courage and talent, when combined, could lead to meaningful recognition and personal growth. As he continued to share his skill, the boy learned the importance of perseverance. Talent alone wasn't enough. It was the hours of practice, the dedication, and the willingness to step forward that made the difference. He understood that recognition didn't come instantly but grew through consistent effort and the courage to reveal one's abilities. This lesson became central to his approach to learning and life in general. Over time, the boy also noticed the effect his courage had on his classmates. Some who had been shy or hesitant began to share their own talents, inspired by his example. Others gained confidence in areas where they had previously doubted themselves. The classroom environment became more supportive and encouraging, filled with students willing to take risks and share their abilities. He realized that his own growth had helped others grow, creating a ripple effect that extended beyond his own achievements. The recognition and admiration he received never made him arrogant. Instead, it encouraged humility and empathy. He remembered how it felt to be nervous, hesitant, and unsure. That memory kept him grounded, and he often supported other students when they faced similar moments of doubt or fear. He understood that encouragement, like recognition, could be transformative. By the end of the school year, the boy had not only mastered his skill, but had also grown into a confident, self-assured student. His peers respected him, his teachers valued his dedication, and he had a newfound belief in his own potential. The initial moment, when he was asked to perform as a joke, had led to a journey of self-discovery, growth, and inspiration. Looking back, he realized that the experience had taught him something more important than any skill or recognition: the power of courage. The courage to step forward, to face fear, and to share what was hidden inside could open doors he had never imagined. That lesson stayed with him, shaping his actions, his choices, and his confidence for years to come. The boy's story became known among the students and teachers as a remarkable example of hidden potential and the impact of encouragement. It reminded everyone that sometimes, a moment that seems embarrassing or uncomfortable could be the catalyst for growth and recognition. It also showed that talent, when nurtured and shared, could inspire and transform not only the individual but also those around them. In the end, the boy learned that being pushed out of his comfort zone was not something to fear. It was an opportunity to discover his true abilities, to build confidence, and to make a positive impression on others. The experiences that began with nervousness and uncertainty became milestones of pride and accomplishment. And though the initial moment had seemed like a joke, it had turned into a defining chapter of his life, leaving a lasting impression that would continue to guide him into the future.